In the last Unreleased match video featuring Shawn Michaels vs Goldust and Shawn Michaels vs Mankind, I asked you guys to tell me which Unreleased or dark match you want me to cover next. 7 days and 23,000 votes later, we have a winner. 41% of you wanted to see the Undertaker vs Mankind dark match from Good Friends Better Enemies covered, and I'll be honest, I was secretly hoping you'd pick that one. This match from the 28th of April 1996 is extremely fascinating when you consider the whole Taker vs Mankind feud that spanned multiple years in WWF. This is a match that fans of this rivalry simply need to watch because it's actually the very first Taker vs Mankind match that ever took place in WWF, and that includes house shows. So let me set the stage first and then we'll check out the match. This is the Unreleased Undertaker vs Mankind match from In Your House, Good Friends, Better Enemies. The main event of Good Friends Better Enemies featured WWF champion Shawn Michaels defending the belt against Big Daddy Cool Diesel. Diesel was getting ready to leave WWF, and on his way out, he put a few guys over by request of Vince McMahon. He lost to Shawn Michaels at In Your House, and the month before that, he lost to The Undertaker. The Taker vs Diesel feud was built up from late December right up to WrestleMania. Following WrestleMania, Diesel would move straight into the build for the HBK match, so that means Taker's business with Diesel had wrapped up and it was time for a new opponent. On the Raw after WrestleMania 12, Taker's new opponent would make his television debut. Mick Foley, who fans knew better as Cactus Jack, wrestled Bob Holly on the Raw after Mania, and old Sparky Plug got annihilated by this new superstar. WWF fans got to see Mankind's aggressive yet unorthodox pro wrestling style for the very first time, and for sure, Mankind was a breath of fresh air in terms of how he wrestled and the characteristics of the gimmick. At the end of this episode of Raw, The Undertaker faced Justin Hawk Bradshaw in the main event, and the Phenom ended up getting attacked by Mankind. And for the first time in a long time, The Undertaker got completely annihilated by just one man. Mankind threw Undertaker into the guardrails and the ring steps. He performed his signature Cactus Jack elbow from the apron to the outside, and The Undertaker felt the mandible claw for the very first time as the attack closed out Monday Night Raw. Mankind was vicious. Just when officials thought the fight had been broken up, Mankind would dash straight back to The Undertaker to continue the beatdown. So, as you can probably tell, right from the get-go, Mick Foley was put in a very good spot in WWF. It's one thing to go up against The Undertaker from day one, it's another thing to completely destroy him upon your debut. And no, Giant Gonzalez doesn't count. The now legendary Undertaker vs Mankind rivalry would begin following this beatdown on Raw, and it's a rivalry that would last for years. There's 3 matches that instantly spring to my mind when I think of this rivalry. The SummerSlam 1996 Boiler Room Brawl where Paul Bearer turned on the Phenom, the first ever Buried Alive match at In Your House 11, and the unforgettable Hell in a Cell encounter at King of the Ring 1998 that, without a doubt, defined the Undertaker vs Mankind feud. These 3 matches seem to get the most coverage, but there were 3 other pay-per-view matches that are still, to this day, very much worth your time. There's the Revenge of the Taker showdown in 1997 that I don't feel gets enough praise. I covered that match for Reliving the War, and I admitted in that video that I'd forgotten just how good that encounter was. There's also the Survivor Series 1996 match where a reinvented Undertaker appeared in Madison Square Garden to get some revenge on Mankind for the Buried Alive match. And then there's the King of the Ring 1996 match, their first ever true pay-per-view encounter in a match where The Undertaker was soundly defeated by Mick Foley. Without a doubt, this is the match that gets the least coverage, and I don't know why. It's the men's first ever televised meeting in the ring, and it's a match that showcased Mankind as a true threat against The Undertaker, so on the grand scheme of things, and when considering the whole rivalry from the start right to the bitter end, this King of the Ring match is pretty important. Still, what you need to keep in mind here is that King of the Ring 1996 happened in June of 1996. Good Friends Better Enemies took place in April. So while the match we're going to see now is the first true Mankind vs Undertaker WWF match that ever got recorded, it also doesn't marry up with the story that was being told on TV broadcasts. On TV, Mankind was unstoppable and he was causing The Undertaker a lot of problems. The month before, at the second Beware of Dog event, Mankind even cost The Undertaker Undertaker a victory over Goldust and a possible run with the IC title when he got involved in the Dead Man's Casket match. So do remember that this dark match doesn't necessarily fit into the story arc being told on TV. It sure is fascinating though, seeing Foley and Taker working together for the very first time. As mentioned, these two did not meet in any live events prior to this Good Friends Better Enemies match, and to my knowledge they never crossed paths in any other promotions before this encounter. They did team together in a 1989 World Class show. It was a 6-man tag and the Undertaker worked as the Master of Pain, but as far as I can tell, this is the only other time the two men shared a ring together. Alright, so it's April 28th, 1996, around 4 weeks after Mankind's debut, and The Undertaker hasn't made any television appearances since getting destroyed by Mick Foley. In Your House, Good Friends Better Enemies takes place in Omaha, Nebraska, and fans in the arena would get treated to the first ever Undertaker vs Mankind match at the very end of the show. Good Friends Better Enemies included 3 dark matches and they all took place after the main event. HBK vs Diesel was the 6th match on the card if we also include the free-for-all, but 9 matches happened at the event in total. The other dark matches featured Savio Vega vs Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hunter Hearst Helmsley vs Mark Mero. Mero also worked the free-for-all match, by the way, so he was pulling double duty. And before fans began leaving the arena, they got to see The Undertaker battling Mankind. This dark match is like the other In Your House untelevised bouts we looked at previously. It's professionally taped using multiple camera shots and not just the hard camera. We get full entrances, but there's no commentary for the match at all. It would be so much easier and a lot more fun to just add a commentary track over these kind of matches and upload them to YouTube, but the channel would unfortunately get hit with all sorts of copyright strikes, so you'll need to look elsewhere or buy the Attitude Era Blu-ray to watch the match in its entirety. A few minutes of the match have been uploaded to the official WWF channel on YouTube though. The two competitors make their entrances and, as expected, it's The Undertaker getting all the cheers from the audience. As soon as the dead man removes his hat, he rushes at Mankind. The two get in a fist fight with The Undertaker getting the upper hand, and after taking an uppercut in the corner, Mankind gets his head smashed on the top turnbuckle. He immediately grabs his ear, or what remains of his ear, to draw attention to it, and then Foley gets thrown into the other corner before getting scooped up for a body slam. Undertaker remains in control with an elbow drop. He stomps on Mankind as the crowd continue to cheer for the Phenom. Mankind gets a chance when Taker misses an elbow drop, and so he decides to clothesline him over the top rope. Taker lands on his feet and Foley ends up getting his head banged on the ring steps. What immediately stands out in the opening moments of the match is Foley's selling. Take for example when he grabs his ear, the hard throw into the corner, and right here where he lays on top of the ring steps. Mick had a way of making every bump he took look painful, and yes, he also just took painful bumps and he was actually in a lot of pain half the time. But I think we sometimes overlook how good Mick was at selling basic bumps too. Back in the ring, Mankind gets his wrist tied up and The Undertaker performs old school. Foley gets tossed into the corner again, and this time he replies with a back elbow. And something else here, the sound the turnbuckles are making is really loud. I checked out the main pay-per-view show to see if something had changed in the TV feed, and yeah, they're much more muted on the pay-per-view.
Now forget about it! Reversal now. It's Razor Ramon to the buckle and oh! Oscars, let me tell you something, man. Oh! If idiots could fly, this place would be an airport. Ah!
The louder clanking noise does sound way better though, doesn't it? Moving on. Foley kicks Taker in the head, but when he goes for another kick, Taker grabs his foot. Mick's able to still hit The Undertaker with a clothesline though, and when Taker sits up, he gets put right back down again with another clothesline. Mankind then chokes The Undertaker on the bottom rope while screaming like an absolute maniac. Paul Bearer doesn't know what to make of this Mankind dude at all as Foley drops a leg on the dead man while Taker was still draped over the bottom rope. The Undertaker then gets dragged out of the ring for a bump at the steps. And something else I'm noticing while watching this one is the fact that they aren't taking it easy here at all. We've watched a few of these dark matches now, and you could tell with a couple of them that the competitors weren't going full throttle. It appears, at least up until this point, that Mankind and The Undertaker are wrestling like the cameras were still rolling. This has been pretty good so far. When the two get back in the ring, The Undertaker performs his signature body blows, but they don't affect Mankind at all. The Deadman gets put back on the mat after a few right hands. Mankind then performs a body slam followed by a leg drop, and The Undertaker gets locked in a deadly nerve pinch. Things aren't looking too good right now for the Phenom. Undertaker gets to his feet and a big headbutt sends Foley into the corner. Mankind then takes an uppercut and he tries to regain his momentum by throwing Taker into the corner, but the Phenom delivers a back elbow. Mankind then gets desperate, so he throws Taker back to the outside, and this turns out to be a good strategy. Foley's able to line up a hard forearm shot that keeps Taker dazed. He then screams in The Undertaker's face like an absolute maniac once again before getting Taker back in the ring. The Deadman's able to turn things around as Mankind tries to get back inside the ropes, but Mankind then drops down to give Undertaker an uppercut. Then, the Deadman gets planted with a piledriver. Foley looks at his hand, clearly thinking of applying the mandible claw and ending the match, but The Undertaker stops that from happening. Mankind's mandible claw was still a pretty new move, but Taker knew how devastating it could be, so he makes sure Foley can't apply it. Undertaker brings it to the corner, but Mankind performs a kick while his back's turned. A bit unorthodox, but it still works. Mick then claws away at The Undertaker's face and the referee's forced to break it up. The Deadman then gets launched into the corner, but he gets a boot up when Mankind comes running in. Taker then performs a clothesline, and Mankind has to take a timeout after getting launched over the top turnbuckle and into the ring post. On the outside, Mick continues to sell his ear while The Undertaker plans his next move. The Deadman comes out and he knees Mick in the midsection. Foley replies by launching Taker into the guardrail, but Taker's not out of this one just yet. He shoves Mankind into the ring post and Mick bangs his head pretty hard. Undertaker does it again, and this time it's Mankind's back that takes all the impact. Undertaker then grabs Mankind by the throat and he shoves him into the guardrails, and this is where our match ends. The two get in the ring. Undertaker once again grabs Foley's foot when Mick tries to kick the Phenom. Mankind again tries the clothesline just like the opening of the match, but this time The Undertaker sees it coming and The Undertaker performs his signature chokeslam. Paul Bearer holds the urn up as The Undertaker signals for the Tombstone Piledriver, and that's it over. The Undertaker defeats Mankind in their first ever meeting inside the squared circle. As Mankind falls out of the ring, The Undertaker picks up a clump of Mick's hair. Fans then begin filing out of the arena, but a lot of folks hang around to see The Undertaker pose in front of Paul Bearer. And that's it all over. Out of all these unreleased matches and dark matches I've watched so far, this one definitely felt like it could have been a pay-per-view bout. It's not the best Undertaker vs Mankind match, that bar would get set way too high as the months and years went on, but these two worked this match as if it was being broadcasted on TV, and Mick, as always, takes some pretty hard bumps inside and outside the ring. So, as mentioned earlier, if you were a big fan of the Undertaker vs Mankind rivalry, then I think this match is mandatory viewing. It's maybe even better than the King of the Ring match, but to be honest, it's been a while since I've watched that pay-per-view and I'd really need to see it again before making a fair judgment. Anyway, Taker and Mankind wouldn't officially meet in the ring until that King of the Ring show, and as mentioned, The Undertaker was unable to beat Mankind at that pay-per-view. I absolutely believe it was the right call. Mankind looked like a real threat when he debuted in WWF, and he looked even more threatening when he actually defeated The Undertaker clean on pay-per-view. Had the WWF booked Mankind to lose, just like he did here at Good Friends Better Enemies, then his arrival in the company wouldn't have been nearly as impactful. Looking at this match too, and remembering that this is the very first ever Undertaker vs Mankind match, you get the impression that The Undertaker knew about Foley's reputation for taking painful bumps. Either that or the two discussed things beforehand and Mick told the Deadman to lay it in, but it's one of those things we'll never know unless Mick or Taker talk about the match specifically in the future. Hopefully it's a topic that might come up in Mick's podcast. But just to reiterate, Undertaker fans, Foley fans, and fans of this rivalry, you need to check this match out from start to end. That's another unreleased match covered. I hope you guys enjoyed this one as much as I did. Another poll is going to go up, and again, you guys can select the next unreleased video that goes on the channel. The previous 3 options are still available for selection, so just as a reminder, we've got Shawn Michaels versus Steve Austin in the Kuwait Tour of 1996, a match that features the pink and black attack Stone Cold Steve Austin trying to pull ribs and crack everyone up. We've got the Mega Maniacs versus Money Inc. in a match that took place after Hogan lost the WWF Championship at King of the Ring 1993. You might want to see Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels team up for 2 matches in 1995, one against the Blue Brothers and another against Hakushi and Jerry Lawler. And if you fancy something completely different, the new option is the Toxic Turtles versus Tommy Stevenson and Ron Preston. Yes, those Toxic Turtles. It's a match that everyone knows about. It's a match that didn't make it to air because, well, who wants a lawsuit because of some Ninja Turtles? But when else am I going to get a chance to talk about this one? So yeah, that's an option too. The poll will be up very soon, if not already, so go cast your votes and I'll check out the winner next week or the week after. Thanks for watching, guys, I do appreciate it, and take care. Corey Phipps, A Ghost in the Machine, William Osborne and Sean XP are some of the top supporters over on Patreon at the moment. So a massive thank you to these guys and everyone else who signs up over on Patreon. Have a look at the Patreon page if you want to check out exclusive videos, the music you hear in Wrestling Bios videos, which is all downloadable by the way. And also, while you're browsing around, check out Sean XP on TikTok. Thanks to everyone for supporting on Patreon, and thanks for keeping Wrestling Bios a little more secure during these dark days on YouTube. I honestly couldn't and wouldn't be able to do it without you.